This podcast explores themes of murder and rape. Listener discretion is advised. Previously on Mind of a Monster, the cross-country killer.
I've known since I was 14 that there were things that I thought were normal and that were okay that nobody else seems to think are normal and okay.
From ID and Arrow Media, I'm criminal psychologist Dr. Michelle Ward, and this is Mind of a Monster, the cross-country killer. Chapter 2, A Double Life.
He talked about what animals to kill, and it sounded more like he was enjoying that in just a weird way.
You realize the joy he gets from inflicting pain on others.
Israel Keyes is a deadly predator who strikes from the shadows, brutalizes and butchers his victims, and then covers his tracks so efficiently that no one knows about his trail of depravity.
He assaulted her, but he did not kill her, and he said he never made that mistake again.
It's Officer Bell, APD, going on tape. It's 15:48 by my watch. Second interview with Israel Keyes today.
All right, Israel, thanks for coming back. And I thought that we'd just let you talk to us for a little bit.
I can tell you right now, there is no one who knows me or who has ever known me who knows anything about me, really. Because I'm two different people, basically. And the only person who knows about what I'm telling you, the kind of things I'm telling you, is me.
How long have you been two different people?
Long time. 14 years.
I have explored Keyes' difficult childhood and those fledgling moments in the young killer's development. But the statement made to the FBI investigators feels particularly significant to me. He appears to say that the most important moment in his life happened 14 years prior to his arrest, once he was already an adult. He doesn't say what that moment is, so I need to dig deep to try to figure it out. It's 1998. The 20-year-old Israel Keyes is now stalking the state forests of upstate New York, just south of the Canadian border. He is no longer living with his family, but he's still very much off the grid. So I catch up with investigative journalist and Israel Keyes encyclopedia, Josh Hallmark.
He is living in a blink and you miss it town in, literally on the border in New York called Constable. His family purchased about 10 acres of land with a house would be generous, like a cabin, and they have sold Keyes this land for like $1.
$1. So what's this property like? It sounds very much like the property he was raised on in Washington.
It's on a dirt road in the woods. There's a river that runs along the property. It's got a house that's already falling apart. It's got a barn and a few other outbuildings, and it's very rural, so there's no neighbors.
Israel lives on the property alone, while the rest of his family moves to Maine to become part of an Amish community. So they've gone from Mormon to militant far-right Christian to now living with the Amish. Last episode, we learned that Israel starts questioning religion, and I wonder what effect this has on his relationship with his parents.
So, after you didn't kill the girl in the river, you said something changed.
At the time, I was going from, like I say, a really religious upbringing to becoming an atheist. I have a lot of issues with organized religion.
Does that come from when the thing that your mom is involved in, the religious group that you're...
I mean, I'm sure it has something to do with the way I was raised, but for the most part, it's just my general outlook on life and humanity, I guess.
So how does Israel Keyes' newfound atheism impact his devoutly Christian family? I asked Josh.
Israel's relationship with his mother, Heidi, is complex. There seems to be a very codependent relationship that is built on their isolationism and his need to be the best oldest son he can be and, provide for his family. And yet also there's this push and pull because he had, over time, evolves very different belief systems than his family, which ultimately come to a head when he denounces God.
So Israel is alone on this New York property, partly through a self-imposed exile and partly because of this family rift. But he doesn't live like this for long. Within a year, he drops another bombshell on his parents. He's going to join the army.
I think, the army was the bigger problem for them because it was a problem that they couldn't fix or manipulate or manage, because now he's going to be accountable to others and he's around other belief systems and other types of people.
So that was the camel that broke the relationships back. He's joining the army.
Yeah.
Not rejecting God.
That was a big part of it too, but according to Keyes, it was when he joined the army that they were like, okay, you can't be saved.
We have to remember that Israel has been brought up to hate and distrust the government. So joining the army is about as rebellious a move the young man can make. Why do you think he decided to do that with his life?
I think there's a few factors at play. I think one, he was already starting to feel a separation from his upbringing and his family, and this was a way he could get away from his family. So it was an out for him.
Right.
I also think it was provocative. It was to upset his parents or to draw the line in the sand that, would separate them for the rest of his life. Also, it was a way for him to maybe exercise some of these feelings he was having in a controlled environment where it was okay to shoot people.
Why the army instead of any of the other armed forces? Was there a reason, or just...
That's what I had always read about was, like World War II, Vietnam, army stories.
Guys on the ground.
Right. That was the kind of thing that appealed to me. Backwoods survival type stuff.
Spring 1998, Israel Keyes enters the recruitment center in New York. In order to enlist, he needs some sort of formal documentation. But he grew up without a birth certificate, without a social security number, and without any evidence of an education. And yet, somehow, within 3 months, he produces the necessary paperwork and is welcomed into the military.
There's just a lot of stuff that happened when I was in the army that changed my perspective on things. Just really changed my perspective on the big picture and made me realize that, if that was what I wanted to do, then I should just do it.
If you wanted to kill somebody.
Yeah. I guess you could say I just kind of came to terms with myself and the reasons why I wanted to do it.
So what happened during his time with the military that was so formative? I need to speak with someone who was there in the barracks with Israel Keyes.
Hi, I'm Nate Lassard. I was in the Army from 1998 until 2002, stationed primarily in Fort Lewis, Washington, and that's where I was stationed with Israel Keyes.
So, it's 1998.
Maybe it was 99, but I think I'd probably been in almost, maybe 6 months, and I was kind of relieved that there was a new guy than me, so I was a pretty social guy, so I went and met him.
What did he look like?
I don't think he was over 21. I was 18, so he might have been 19 or 20. I might be getting that messed up. He was a little older than me, but not by much. He was a very athletic guy, but everything about him kind of moved slow. And I went down to meet him, and these are the first questions you ask somebody. What kind of music are you into? What kind of sports are you into? And he said, well, I don't really listen to music. And I was like, well, what did you listen to, growing up? Nothing, really. So I'm like, well, you got to listen to this. So I'd bring my, at the time, CDs, out, or we'd go to my room and I'd put that stuff on. He'd be like, yeah, I like it. It was like almost to me, I probably could have put on anything. And he would have been like, yeah. He's like, yeah, this is cool,
Wow. It's like having an alien dropped onto Earth and you get to show him things.
Yeah, which was kind of kind of neat, you know? It's like I'm keeping this guy for myself.
It's so intriguing picturing this guy who has spent the first 20 years of his life being kept away from society, and now he's experiencing this entirely new community. He's like a 5-year-old on the first day of school. Was he really different from the other guys? Like, did he stand out to everybody?
Yeah. I mean, he was weird. You know, it'd almost be like talking to somebody from the 80s now. You know, just the certain expressions were kind of out of place. We liked him, well, we loved him, but he was not cool.
Wow, I'm just gonna pause for a moment. We loved him? The last person we heard from who actually met Israel Keyes was Desiree Smith, who described a painfully awkward date with a creepy kid who had no social skills and no warmth. Cut to a few years later, and he's loved? How did that happen? Well, he's mirroring Nate. He likes the same music Nate likes, and he's learning social cues so he can be accepted as one of the guys. I haven't talked to a lot of people who consider themselves close to him. That puts you in a unique category.
Yeah, I mean, we'd hang out. Keys didn't like to be out as much, you know, but he would. He'd go out, shoot pool, have a few drinks at the bar. You know, I think he probably came to a couple karaoke nights with us.
Did Israel talk to you about why he decided to join the military?
Mostly just to get away. He was really not into religion at all. He was pretty anti-religion, which was not a uncommon thing. But yeah, it seemed like he wanted to get away and get out of that community.
So he told you a little bit about his family. Did he tell you that they got along, or did he ever communicate with them?
I know he communicated with his sisters. He had told me, and it sure seemed to add up, that he was Amish, that he had moved through the Amish communities, which, you know, I'd seen pictures of his sisters and his mother, and the traditional, like, you know, bonnet and dresses, homemade dresses and stuff. And yeah, I mean, they look like Amish people.
So Israel's family has moved to an Amish community, but Israel is telling his new friends that he grew up Amish. He doesn't mention the white supremacist Christian identity movement at all. And it's easy to understand why. In this mixed race environment, he probably doesn't want to share that baggage. But it is interesting to me that he's modifying the way he presents himself in order to be accepted, lying essentially to fit in. And this is consistent with how psychopaths navigate the social experience. I asked journalist Josh Hallmark about this behavior, but he believes it's not just about fitting in. Israel's outlook on the world is changing.
That's interesting. He attributes his, changes in philosophy to the army. I think he started questioning things before that because it was against his family's values to participate in the armed forces. So he clearly, before the army, was already starting to kind of shy away or challenge, the belief system he was raised with.
It's not just the existence of God he doubts. It's the racism, the anti-Semitism. Hearing about the changes Israel makes to his life, it's hard not to feel some optimism about him. He's rejected the extreme politics he was born into. He's found a way to connect with society in spite of his family. And now he's even making friends. I wonder if the military offered a legitimate way for him to thrive. In the FBI recordings, Keyes has this to say.
I didn't do anything really bad when I was in the army. Kind of balanced me out and gave me something else to focus on, I guess. Not so much free time.
Interesting that he says he didn't do anything really bad. I wonder what in Keyes' mind this actually means. I'm talking with one of Israel Keyes' buddies from the Army, Nate Lassard. How did Keyes take to being a soldier?
Better than any of us. He was a good soldier. Like it was a pretty common insult to call him an army guy, which nobody wanted to be, at least in our mortar squad. Not only did he always have his uniform and boots shined and pressed, I mean, he would do mine. He would do other people's.
Do you think he enjoyed the stringent scheduling of it?
Yeah, I mean, he was meticulous. Everything he did was regimented, done in order. If you were to look in his drawers, he was always like ready for inspection. You know, his socks were rolled up, his uniforms were rolled to perfect Army standards. You know, I mean, everything was perfect.
What do you think attracted him to be such a good soldier?
I just think he was kind of one of those guys made for it. You know, I mean, he was a real structured type of guy. That being on time, being, you know, ready, having his stuff ready to go at all times. He was better at that than the rest of us. Certainly better than me and my buddies.
Meticulous, regimented, and ready to go at all times. Israel Keyes, the survivalist, who was raised in the forest preparing for doomsday, has found an ideal home in the Army. The skills he learned as a child, hunting, hiding, adapting to his environment, and using whatever is at hand to solve problems, are highly valued in this new life. Plus, now he's in a place where it's okay to kill. In fact, killing is part of the skill set, which makes him the perfect soldier. Perhaps the biggest problem for Keyes is that there's no war. I can't believe that in this environment, there were no signs of Keyes the killer. I asked Nate if he saw another side to his buddy, a darker, violent side.
He wasn't a violent person when I knew him. He was almost a gentle person. You know, like, yeah, violent would be like the last word I would have ever used to describe him.
So nothing stood out to you as, I could see that guy becoming a criminal one day?
At the time, no, but like you look back on it, I tell this one, and I had forgotten it for years because it didn't really mean anything until I found out, you know, that he'd been murdering people. I'd always given him shit, and sometimes he'd get not angry about it, but he'd just get quiet. And I remember sitting in his room, and there was the three of us, and I was getting drunk, and I'm sure all three of us were, and I was giving Keyes a lot of shit, and he was doing his get quiet thing, and I'm laughing, and I'm getting closer and closer to passing out. So I must have passed out, and I woke up, and it was just Keyes and I in the room, but I was hog-tied on the ground, like wrists tied to ankles. I'm screaming at him, yelling at him, you know, like, cut me out, you know, cut me out. And he just sat there, just looking at me, drinking his beam and water. He probably left me there for like 5-10 minutes. But that feels like a long time. It's not a comfortable position to be in. I mean, finally he grabbed his knife and cut the zip ties. And I was upset, you know, I was yelling at him and whatever, and went back to my room. Probably told the other guys, you know what that asshole did to me. And I'm sure they thought it was funny, which I probably thought it was funny for years and years until I found out.
Did this feel out of character for Keyes?
No, I saw it as a joke that he had taken, I don't know, maybe too far. I wasn't even mad at him about it, really, you know, afterwards.
If it were anybody else, you could write this off as a typical Army prank. But we know from his first attempt at murder that Keyes tied up his victim and uses zip ties in later killings. Do you think he was contemplating killing you?
Probably contemplating it. I don't think he would have done it. You know, it would have been pretty hard to get away with that one.
It's interesting to me, thinking through his lens. I bet he was practicing. He was probably like timing himself, seeing how quickly he could do it, see if you'd wake up. And serial killers do that. They practice.
Right. I mean, I don't want to pretend like we knew that he was capable of that stuff, because nobody did.
Nate's recollection of Keyes makes him seem like a regular member of the squad who nobody thought twice about. But I wonder, does Keyes remember it that same way? When the FBI asked if he remained friends with anybody from the Army, Keyes had this to say.
They all knew I had issues. That's why I wasn't really close with any of them, really. A lot of the guys in my squad didn't want to hang out with me if it was like in a social situation because they didn't know what to expect.
So what kind of stuff did the other guys what kind of issues would they see that
They just knew I had psychosocial issues, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. There was that time when we went to Tel Aviv when I was in Egypt and they saw some of the stuff I did.
The way Keyes talks about his Army buddies reminds me of his reaction to those friends in the woods who watched in horror as the 14-year-old killed a cat. He realizes that he's revealed too much of himself, and now they know he's different. Keyes mentions something that happened in Tel Aviv, and I want to know more. About a year and a half after Keyes joins the Army, their squad is sent on a peacekeeping mission to Egypt. They're stationed close to Israel, and when the boys are off duty, they decide to cross the border to indulge in some R&R.
We had gone out to Eilat, Israel, and as we're trying to check into a hotel, a guy comes up and introduces himself, and we're like, so he's like, don't wait in line to check in, just come up with me. And so he takes us up to the 6th floor and puts us in this suite. If we wanted beer, or if we wanted, drugs, or if we wanted girls, you could do all that. We end up drinking, I think, a whole Army duffel bag full of Heineken beer. And so he sends Russian prostitutes up to the room. They would knock on the door. Well, Keyes takes one into the suite bedroom. And they're in there maybe 5-10 minutes. And she comes busting out, holding her clothes. She's kicking at him. And Keyes is right behind her in his underwear holding the money out, trying to hand her the money. And she's slapping at him. And as she kind of swings outside the door, still holding her clothes, he's trying to put the money out through the crack in the door, and she's kicking at him. And I remember that scene. That's burned into my memory.
Wow. Did she seem frightened?
Yeah, she didn't want him to touch her or be anywhere near her.
I'm so curious about what happened in there. When you asked him, what did he say?
He just said he didn't know. She got freaked out and got up and left. It's like, well, dude, come on, there's got to be more to it.
I've no doubt there's more to it. Keyes mentions the incident in his interviews with the FBI.
Yeah, she was pretty bad. She was a pretty small little Russian girl, and she and I had been drinking, so I kind of threw her around a little bit.
Keyes doesn't elaborate beyond this, so we can only imagine what it was that terrified the girl so much. But he has another encounter in Egypt that goes longer than 5 minutes, and it's one that his Army buddies did not witness.
Egypt is... I thought I could get away with it over there because... I did. I got away with it, but there were some close calls, like I said, where things could have got really out of hand real quick. There was a girl that I met in... I think it was when I was in Tel Aviv. She was pretty young. She was a student. I think she was from she was a Norwegian exchange student or something. And I wouldn't say that was like an outright rape because she, we were hanging out and stuff, and she allowed herself to be, like, it was in her room. She told me where her room was. And I was gonna, I almost, I did lose control a little bit as things progressed.
Keyes is using some awful, minimizing language that attempts to lay some of the responsibility with his victim. not outright rape. She allowed herself. But he basically said he raped a girl who he was dating and nearly killed her. It's what he says next that helps me understand why his time in the Army is so important.
That's when I realized, that if I was going to do that kind of stuff it had to just be complete strangers from then on. It couldn't be anyone who knew me or who had seen me around the person. Or I just realized that if I kept doing stuff like that, it was only a matter of time before I got caught.
Keyes comes to a terrifying realization that he can get away with murder if he plans it properly. I think it's here in the Army when he starts to understand the ideal circumstances for committing his crimes. The choice of victim, the choice of location, and the timing. That if he gets these things right, he can do whatever he wants. When he talks about that turning point 14 years ago, when, in his words, he became two separate people, I wonder if he's referring to this discovery.
I'm two different people, basically. Long time. 14 years.
I want to be clear about what he means, because we are not talking about a psychological split or what used to be called multiple personality disorder. That's when a person experiences switching between two or more different identities with different personalities, and they have no control over this. What Keyes is talking about is a conscious decision to separate his life into two personas who never cross. I check in with Josh Hallmark again for his opinion. So he is saying he is two separate people. Is he delineating his public persona from his secret life?
Yes, he's saying there's the person that everybody knows and loves, the family man, the army buddy, the construction worker, and then there's the guy who spends every waking hour planning on how he's going to kill someone.
Israel Keyes' public persona takes a new shape once he decides to leave the Army in 2001. He does something quite unexpected. He starts a family. Detective Monique Dahl interrogates Israel to establish a timeline.
When did you meet Tammy? How long?
I met her when I was in the Army.
When you were stationed in Washington?
Yeah. I met her right after I got back from Egypt.
And then were you stationed in Washington when you got out of the military?
Yeah.
Okay. And then from there you went to live in Nia Bay?
Yeah.
With Tammy?
It's year 2000, and Israel Keyes meets Tammy on an internet dating site. She's around 10 years older than him, and she's mixed race, half indigenous and half black, which makes her an interesting choice of girlfriend when we consider Keyes' white supremacist upbringing. Tammy has an 8-year-old son from a previous relationship, and soon after they start dating, she becomes pregnant with Israel Keyes' daughter. Tammy's originally from a reservation called Nia Bay on the very northwestern tip of Washington state, and she moves back there to have her baby. When Israel leaves the Army, instead of going back to his cabin in New York, he moves in with Tammy. I asked Josh Hallmark why. What's the motivation to become a hands-on dad?
I mean, my answer would probably change from minute to minute. I think that his upbringing says this is what you're supposed to do. I think it's also to be provocative. He now has a mixed race child with a black and native woman. I think it's also like, I'm a serial killer who feels most comfortable in the woods, and I'm being invited to go live on the edge of the world in the woods on a tribe with this woman. Mm-hmm. Almost, I mean, very different, but also very similar to the communal way with which he was brought up. It's like we're surrounded by like-minded people with similar belief systems and tenets out in the woods with very little oversight or accountability.
I agree. Josh's final point is perhaps the most fascinating. Keyes is going to live in an area which is not off-grid, but shares a lot of similarities with the environment in which he grew up. I want to talk with somebody who's from the reservation and remembers Israel Keyes. And this is a tall order because, understandably, people from that area do not want to talk about this man who entered their community, exploited their trust, and then committed a series of horrendous atrocities. So I'm incredibly grateful that Jim Thompson has agreed to speak with me. Jim is now a cop and works in the town of Port Angeles. But 24 years ago, he was living and working 60 miles to the northwest on the edge of the world.
I'm from Bay, Washington, out on northwest Washington, as far northwest as you can go on the continental United States.
Really? Oh, I didn't realize that. You're almost touching Canada.
Yeah.
You're out on the water, out in the bay, and looking towards land. There's a village, but right in behind that, there's mountains and trees, and then on the other side, it's open water, all clear to Canada.
Mm-hmm. So the majority of the demographic is Native Americans?
Yes, it's our home. We've lived there since at least the mid-1800s.
Jim's tribe is called Makah, and about 1,500 people live on the Nia Bay Reservation.
It's one of those, you think stereotypical small town. You walk down the street and you'll know everybody, basically.
It's early 2002. Israel Keys is now 23 and works as a handyman on projects for the local community. It's here where he meets Jim. Do you happen to remember the first time you met Israel Keys?
It doesn't stand out. I knew who he was before I met him. He was married to a family member of mine. Her name is Tammy. There's the sibling relationship only a couple generations back between Tammy and I. It would have been, I think, second or third cousin, something like that. But those aren't terms that we speak in. Growing up, that was just my cousin Tammy, and her mom was Auntie. And
what was Tammy like?
I always have really good memories of growing up around Tammy, growing up around her family. She's always really happy, really positive personality, great laugh. It seemed like she was always laughing. It was always a good time around her, and if she was around, we were gonna have a laugh about something.
Oh wow! And Israel's married to Tammy at that point?
I don't recall if they were ever officially married. I think by and large the community looked at them as husband and wife, regardless of whether or not they actually were legally married.
Reading what little information there is on Israel's relationship with Tammy, it seems pretty functional. Apparently, he gets along really well with her son, and she describes him as a good father. We now know that he's a serial killer, but did anyone close to Keys have any idea about this dark side? Jim worked with Keys for almost a year.
I was 21. I don't remember how old he was. I don't think he's much older than I am.
You're 21, you were young. Was he friendly?
Quite reserved. Seemed a little bit socially awkward, but not to the point where it was like really strange or weird, but just not a social person is what stood out to me.
What did he look like?
One of those slender people, but they're strong is what I got from him and working with them. But just one of those wiry guys that had that weird strength.
So you guys were working together on construction projects?
A lot of what he did was kind of the beautification around town. We installed a playground. There's a open air building by the general store, and just kind of small things around the community to make it look a little bit nicer.
So Israel Keys is doing good work for the community.
Yeah. My mom's house, he actually did some work on. Her porch was in pretty bad shape, and I don't know if she paid him for the work or if he just came and did it as family.
Isn't it interesting how somebody can be so nuanced and layered? That's what never stops amazing me. You had mentioned that the majority of the people who lived there were part of the Makah tribe. What did the indigenous people think of Israel?
I think he was accepted, so they welcomed him to the community. And, as someone that worked for the community and is connected to the community with his relationship.
It is surprising to me how Keys ingratiates himself into the Makah community. And this relationship comes up in the FBI interviews.
Israel, are you Native American or anything?
No.
I noticed you spent several years out on the West Coast working for the Maka tribe. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you might have some property in upstate New York, near the St. Regis tribe, the Native American, is that significant in any way?
I don't know how significant it is, but, our paths have crossed for a long time.
I think it is significant. As Josh Hallmark pointed out, there are several interesting parallels between Nia Bay and Israel's upbringing. He is living somewhere incredibly remote, surrounded by nature, and he's part of a community that, for very different reasons than that of the militant Christians he grew up with, is isolated from the rest of society. By associating with the Makah tribe, Keyes too can isolate himself. He's an outsider among the indigenous people, but an outsider among the non-indigenous too. And it's this distance that gives the space for him to develop a secret life. When I asked Jim whether he picked up on anything strange about Israel, he says he didn't, which totally makes sense. Israel's living with his partner and his baby, and let's be clear, even Tammy fully believes Israel's a normal guy. Did he seem like a good dad to you?
He did. Every time he talked about her, you could tell that he cared about her and he wanted good things for her.
Did he speak affectionately about her?
Very much so, yeah.
It's so interesting and juxtaposed against what we know later. A caring father, a decent partner, a reliable community figure. You could almost believe that Israel Keyes is a regular guy, which, of course, is exactly what he wants you to believe. Josh Hallmark.
There are times where he seems like an affable, nice guy. He's talking about his friends. He's talking about his kid. He's talking about his girlfriend. So, there is a normalcy there and an ability to intermix with typical people in a way that feels like he's actually gaining value from those relationships. But then he also is out in the woods killing people.
Keyes is living a double life in Nia Bay, and his friends and family are completely oblivious. He's begun his killing spree.
So going back to when you got out of the Army and you're living in Nia Bay, right?
Yeah.
And you said you had a lot of downtime and you've been kind of holding back on the stuff that you were thinking about doing. What set that free? What made it kind of go to the step where you were at?
There was stuff that happened when I was in Nia Bay, yeah. I just don't know. I don't want to give the whole timeline on it right now.
In his interviews with the FBI, Keyes admits to killing at least 4 people while he's living in Nia Bay. And yet there's no mass panic, no manhunt, no recognition at all that a serial killer is at large.
I would do something, and then I would go back like business as usual and go out with friends, go out to bars, talk to them, see people, and it was all like a mind game with me. That was all I needed. That was my adrenaline. That's where I got my kicks, I guess, was being able to live 2 different lives and have no one have a clue. Just being able to look at people while they were talking to me and thinking that, for all the years they've known me, they actually don't know me at all, really.
He's talking about people like Jim Thompson. Jim became a cop before he found out his former work buddy is a serial killer. He has this to say.
This is something that I struggled with early on when I found out who he really is, who he really was. It was hard. What did I miss? I asked myself that, I don't know how many times. What did I miss? What did I not see?
How can someone commit serial murders across 14 years and multiple states without arousing any suspicion whatsoever? Not just to the police, but also his friends and family. Israel Keyes is becoming a master at hiding his trail of victims, and he's just getting started. Next time on Mind of a Monster, the cross-country killer.
The authorities were alerted, and that Keyes himself was part of this initial search party where they're looking for the guy.
My thought process had always been that there's not a body and not any witnesses, then I probably won't ever even be questioned about it.
He would say, without me, you're never going to find out who these people were.
I'll give you 2 bodies and a name.
I've had some confessions in my history, but nothing to that detail. The whole thing is just so disturbing and something that you'll never get out of your mind, never forget.
Mind of a Monster, the cross-country killer is produced by Arrow Media, a Fremantle company, for ID. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Ward. You can follow our show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd love it if you could take a second to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.